brand new season.
You're listening to Arkansas Preps Weekly on Natural State Sports, your top source for the biggest news in high school sports across Arkansas.
Here we go.
What is up, everybody? Thanks for joining us as we return from a week off on Arkansas Preps Weekly here on the Natural State Sports Network. This is episode 67. As you know, those that follow at least our social media, you will know that we did not do a podcast. Of course, if you also look at the YouTube channel as well, there was an episode missing from last week. A lot of that due to me being one of the ones in Saline County that did not have power for about 2.5 days, about 2.5 days. So we're excited to be back, and we will bring in now, along with me, the softball guru, Jared Hawthorn. And Jared, first off, I want to tip my cap literally to you, because you as a first responder, I know you were very busy last week. Certainly want to thank all of our first responders, as well as all the linemen that got our power back and got us back to normal. I know in parts of my neighborhood, we're still kind of getting to that point because it was pretty bad out here, but glad that everybody has made it through. I know that there was obviously parts of the state that got, especially Northeast Arkansas, that was hit with the tornadoes, but glad to be back and glad that everybody made it out, or at least most of us made it out safe and is back to our normal lives for the most part. I know that I am very thankful for that, but despite being without power for a couple of days, I certainly consider myself the lucky one. So, Jared, again, thank you for what you did, what everybody else did. I know it was a really tough week for Arkansas last week.
Yeah, it was definitely a rough week for a lot of people. We saw quite a bit here, a lot of flooding here in Hot Springs, and I was luckily off for the very worst part of it, but our department had some water rescues and had some things like that, and definitely saying prayers for all those that were affected and the ones that are still being affected by the flooding, especially South Arkansas right now with the Washita River and stuff, still dealing with a lot of that as a result of last week. Prayers go out to all those that got hammered with the tornadoes and everything going into that. Just glad that for the most part the state has come together and really responded well, and you see, sometimes you see the best of people after something major like that. So I've definitely seen the best of people. I spent the week down at Family Farm in Glen Rose. That's my off day job from the fire department, is I cut trees, and I spent the week down there helping get Family Farm back in order, because they had a couple of proms on Friday and Saturday night, and they had several hundred trees down. And so me and my crew, along with hundreds of volunteers, spent the whole week cleaning up down there and got them back in order just in time for proms on Friday night and Saturday night. So there's some really good people down there at Family Farm, some of the best people in the world, and I was glad to be able to be a part of helping them out.
Yeah, most definitely there. And on a lighter note, as far as the in-state college repping that we're doing this week, I am actually repping I know either the last episode or the one before, you rep the ASU Newport Aviators. Well, Kevin Pierce, their head coach, sent, I know you and I both, some goodies, and this is included in those goodies for me was the hat. So very thankful to have that. And I've got a shirt as well that I'll definitely be wearing at some point. Of course, as we're recording on a Sunday night, the Natural State Sports Network, I was part of the crew that called some semi-pro basketball games. So I've got my NSS fishing hoodie on still from that. But you are repping the Henderson State Reddies. Shout out my mother, a Henderson State Ready herself, was the 1978 homecoming queen there. But Joel Worthington in his first year at Henderson State, both Henderson and their rival across the street, Washita Baptist, which you featured their colors and their logo a few weeks ago as well, maybe about a month ago. But this time around, it is the Reddies that you're donating.
I'm probably going to catch a little bit of some stray comments on this one, because I'm an OBU guy and I played a little baseball at OBU. So I'm definitely going to catch a little bit from some of the OBU guys for wearing Henderson State gear. But definitely, I've been friends with several coaches there, back to the Beth Jackson days and the David Martinez days, and now Coach Worthington there. And he's doing really well with that program, and they're winning several games this year. really trying to get that program up and rolling and being at the top of the conference if they can. They're doing a great job, and was fortunate enough to get some gear from them. And so definitely want to give a shout out to Coach Worthington and the Reddies down there. And I know several girls on that team, so be a good chance to get a little bit of the tip of the cap to them. And I guess for one episode I can wear that Reddy gear, and then I'll go back to my OBU stuff.
Dad is OBU, mom's Henderson, so I can relate. It's always Battle of the Ravine week. I know there's, Battle of the Ravine in multiple sports, but the one that I know gets the most attention is the football one, of course. And every single week in November, when that week comes around, there's always some trash talk, and always has been. So a lot of fun there. And also, too, I want to remind everybody before we get started into the coverage, want to give some love to ours. First off, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, or if you prefer the audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere you listen, we are there. As far as the people that make this show possible, Athletic Field Service of Arkansas, the AFS logo that you see in the top left corner, whether it be laser, let's see, what is it? Edging. What is the word I'm looking for? Lip removal and edging. That's what I was looking for. It's very late, or it's getting late. It's 10 o'clock as we start the recording here. So I'm a little bit flustered with my brain, but lip removal, edging, any of those on a natural surface, Jeremy Rice and his crew have you covered. 501-416-1218. That's 501-416-1218 for any natural surface needs that you may have. Also, Boom Boom Floor Shine, covering the Southwest Arkansas metro area, region, whatever you want to call it. You need some TLC for your VCT, call our friends at Boom Boom Floor Shine, 870-833-0521. I'll only repeat that once because you'll see it on the screen throughout the entire episode. And last but not least, Chinook Cedary, whether you like jalapeno ranch, lemon pepper, smokehouse barbecue, or original, they have 8 flavors that you can choose from. The top sunflower seeds in the country, or in the world, actually. Let's just go ahead and say that. Just ask anybody at USA Baseball, D1 Baseball, or D1 Softball. That is their preferred seed. You can go to ChinookCedary.com, type in referral code NSS Media for 10% off your order. Okay, now let's get into the reason why you're all here. That is the softball talk, of course, starting in Class 6A, as we always do. One of the big headlines from this week was the BDI Invitational that is played at Rogers. Had some really good teams in that. Now, we had some 4A teams that got some big wins. We'll talk about that once we get to 4A. But I know one of the big wins in 6A this week was Harbor over Rogers. That was a 3-0 victory for the Lady Wildcats on Monday. Harbor actually, so Rogers, who was the host of the BDI tournament, they opened the tournament with a 6-3 loss to Houston Christian. Dalen Osborne, who we've talked about on here many times, going to be a big-time college pitcher somewhere. She went 3. She actually relieved. I don't believe she started. I'm pretty sure she relieved and pitched about 3 innings. Allowed no runs, no hits. 9 of the 12. I do remember hearing that about 9 of the 12 batters she faced, she struck out. Then the Wildcats responded with a 1-0 victory over 4A number 1 P Ridge. So P Ridge actually lost to Rogers, and then which that was a 1-run loss, and then also lost to Springdale Harbor, which was also a 1-run 4-3 loss. So again, we'll talk a little bit more about the Lady Blackhawks once we get into Class 4A, but a really good tournament, as they always have up there. And then also we had in the Central, which was obviously a non-conference matchup, Bryant takes down Benton 4-3. That was a Thursday night game in the strikeout cancer game, a game with a great cause between Saline County foes. All proceeds went to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. McKinley Easterwood for the Lady Hornets went 3 for 4 on the night. Keston Semino also had multiple hits, going 2 for 4. And then Madeline Baldwin, who has been very impressive this year in her first years as the Lady Hornets, is ace. She went the distance and struck out 3. And then also for Benton, KB Moix had multiple hits and Lydia Bethard's homered. So kind of a little bit of to summarize all that I put up there, Jared, what most of most of the, I would say, highlights that came from the BDI tournament came from the Class 4A teams that got wins over Class 6A teams. But even in a loss, Rogers, I thought, looked pretty good over the week. I know they lost to that Houston Christian team to open up Rogers, they lost the 3-0 game to Harbor. That was definitely a setback for them. They've got Bentonville this week, so they got a chance to rebound against the Lady Tigers that they've already lost to. But that 1-0 win over Pea Ridge, yes, it was a 6A over a 4A, but that was a top-ranked, really good 4A team. And then also here in Central Arkansas, Bryant escapes 5A number 1 Benton with a 4-3 victory.
A lot of people talking about that Bryant Benton game. I saw a lot of it on social media, heard people talking about it at ball fields and different places that I was at. It was a heck of a battle between Madeline Baldwin and Rexy Crane, I think, was throwing for Benton. And everybody talked about what a great game that was and the atmosphere. And, of course, like you said, it was for a very worthy cause. And that's the kind of stuff that high school softball is supposed to be about. You go out there and just, lay it all out on the field and see who comes out. But you're doing it all in great sportsmanship and for a great cause. So heard a handful of things about the BBI Classic up there. I didn't get to follow it as closely as I wanted to, especially Saturday. I was on shift and we were extremely busy, especially during the middle part of the day. But I would definitely say Rogers looked very solid even in the losses that they took. And then I heard a lot of people speaking highly of Gentry and Pea Ridge on the 4A side of being in that tournament.
I got to tell you, I don't know if I should necessarily apologize or maybe just give a lot more credit. I think that I might have you maybe not as much as me. I might have undersold this Bryant team a little bit. I knew they were going to be good. I had a feeling, obviously, they would, along with Cabot and maybe Conway, kind of the Conway more so the sleeper coming into the year in the 6A Central. But Bryant's been very impressive, and they've beaten Cabot. They got that win over Benton, which is obviously a really good one. They're undefeated still. They've got they've got a 4A win over Monticello, if I'm not mistaken, which I certainly count that. It's a ranked win. That's a very quality win over a good team. I really think that this Benton team is out for something. And they're going to be ranked pretty high this week. Again, I mean, they're just again, I don't want to sound like that I didn't have high expectations for them, but I think that you look back even maybe just a couple of weeks ago, we've talked about them at various parts of the season, but I really do think they were maybe a little bit undersold coming into the year. And Coach Ryan, even though he was there, he was an assistant on staff previously, he's doing a great job in his first year at the helm.
Well, if I remember correctly, when we did the preview show, I said that I thought Bryant was going to be about the 5th or so best team in 6A. I was probably a little wrong on that too. Right now, I really believe they're maybe the 2nd or 3rd best team in 6A and have an argument for being possibly the best team. They've played really well, and I really think Bentonville is the top team there. But Bryant is definitely making their case for being right there in that conversation. I think I missed a little bit on them. I mean, I expected them to be good, but I didn't quite expect them to be where they are right now, and especially not to be, where they are record-wise right now. I would have thought they had maybe two to 4 losses at this point with some of the competition they were playing. So definitely they are performing very highly and looking really good, and nothing but props to them for going out there and doing their job. And I'm going to be honest with you, Madeline Baldwin has thrown the ball really well, and that's been a big part of what they've done as well as they've done.
Speaking of I muted the wrong person. Speaking of the top teams in the state, the top team in the state, so Bentonville's got a real big week ahead. They've got Rogers this week. They've got Springdale Harbor this week. So 2 top 5 matchups that teams they've already beaten. They've already beaten both Rogers and Harbor in conference play. But the big one is on Saturday. Now, this one might not count towards the postseason, but it's a big one towards not just now. Bentonville's probably out of the mix of were a long shot to win possibly a national championship. And I know that sounds crazy, but with their schedule, especially those Louisiana schools scheduling Melissa, now they did lose pretty handily to Calvary Baptist, Louisiana in mid-March. So that pretty much probably took them out of the running for a possible national, because I mean, nobody's going to give, let's be real, nobody's going to give Arkansas a national championship regardless of what they did. That's just kind of unfortunately how it is, a team from Arkansas. But they've got a chance to really go and make some noise down in Melissa this week. They're going to go play in Melissa. For those that don't know, we've talked about it some, but we're going to really be publicizing it this week. I'll be down there for the game on Saturday, but they're going to play top ranked Melissa. I have yet to see a national poll, whether it, from a reputable source or not, that does not have Melissa at number one nationally. So what this does for Bentonville, and Jared, I've seen some videos of this. I've watched, especially in the last week and a half, I've watched Melissa, and look, they're loaded. They got a Texas signee. They've got a Michigan State commit. They've got a Florida commit. I mean, they are loaded just like Bentonville is. You can call me biased. You can call me whatever you want. I think that Bentonville's a better team than Melissa at their best. Now I've only seen 3 or 4 games, not full ones, but just from the film that I've seen, I really do believe that Bentonville can go down there and win this game. Here's the deal, though. They've got it really more than anything. I think that really just competing in this. I don't see them going down there and getting the doors beat off. I think they're too good of a team for that to happen. But this is really, really big for not just Bentonville, not just for Northwest Arkansas, but Arkansas high school softball in general to be playing a game of this magnitude.
Well, going to Melissa, knowing what all the national media thinks of Melissa, that's a huge step for Arkansas softball. For Bentonville, for the whole state, if they go down there, win, lose, or draw, if they go down there and they compete and it's a close ball game, they're going to earn a ton of respect for their program and for programs all across the state. And I love seeing teams from Arkansas high schools step out and go play great teams from out of state and give themselves a chance to earn respect nationally and, make themselves better. And all they're doing is preparing themselves to go win a state championship here, and to do their thing. And, who knows? Maybe they go down there and, they managed to knock off the number one team in the country, and look at where they are after that. I really believe they'd have a chance to be ranked, in the top 5 nationally if they go down there and get that win. They definitely have a great team. They have, in my opinion, the chance to do that. I have not got to see Melissa play, but I have seen tons of, national media writing stories and putting stuff out about Melissa and how loaded they are and how dominant they are. And so if there's all that talk going on about Melissa, we'll see what happens if Bentonville could go down there and find a way to knock.
Well, I'll say this, and I know that some are going to say that's incredibly biased of me to say that, but I think Bentonville's played a better schedule. I mean, you look at Melissa's schedule right now, and I'm in no way, look, I've nothing but respect. I mean, they've earned what they have right now. But I mean, Melissa's just pounding people, and I don't think it's just because they're that much better than everybody. I do think genuinely that Bentonville has played. When you look at the Louisiana schools that Bentonville has played, between Calvary Baptist, Sterlington, and was nationally ranked. Calvary still is. I think I've seen Calvary ranked as high as 2 or 3. If I'm not, I think the NFCA maybe has that. But I mean, they've got an ample opportunity to do that, and we'll have coverage of that on the Natural State Sports Network. I'll be down there. My man Jimmy Jones that will be down there taking pictures, so we'll have a professional photographer as well. So looking really forward to that. Down in Class 5A, Jared, not a whole lot, honestly, from now. The last 2 weeks, yes, there's probably a good bit of stuff, but really, as far as last week goes, pretty much what I had in my notes was BB with a 6-2 win over Whitehall. Now, BB did finish the week with they lost their benefit. I don't count benefit games, but other than their benefit game, they had not lost until this past week, and that was the game. But they did beat Whitehall on Monday, huge win for them. Benton had two big wins and a doubleheader over Maumelle. That was on Tuesday, 7-1 and 9-3. I think 7-1 was the first game, and then 9-3. Either way, that just two dominant wins over a really good team. So I was going to go into a little bit, if there's something you maybe had in your notes, I'll go ahead and give you the floor. But I was also just going to go ahead and kind of talk about some games this week to watch.
Well, just talking about Benton, you're talking about the two big wins over Maumelle. They played very well in those games.
Yeah.
And definitely looked very strong against Maumelle with two solid wins. And then they gave Bryant everything that Bryant wanted. I mean, that was a last inning game. Maybe was that a walk-off for Bryant on that one? I can't remember.
I believe it was either a walk-off or maybe like scored in the 6th or 7th. I didn't see the end result on that.
Well, I do know that it was a very tight ball game and hard. So, they took one of the top 6A schools to the mat and competed and was right there in the ball game with them. Benton, I'm going to tell you, is looking much better than I expected them to be a very solid team this year. They were very deep with the pitching staff and, Rexy Crane and Bella, and they've got 3-4 pitchers, that are going well. But I'm going to tell you, they are overperforming a little bit from where I expected them to be. I kind of expected them to be maybe 3rd or 4th in 5A, and they're sitting at the top. So I continue to be impressed with them. Sheridan is still looking very solid. They've had to deal with their share of injuries and losing Mary Lim, and kind of, they lost several big players from last year, but they're still showing that they're definitely one of the top teams. BB has looked good, really good, and their losses, even though they lost a couple of games, were close losses, and they were right in the ballgame with strong teams. And I'm still kind of high on Greenwood, even though I don't know that Greenwood is quite right there in those top 3 teams. Greenwood is still consistently showing to be a very gritty team that just goes out there and they fight till the last pitch. And they've lost a couple of games here and there that didn't look so strong. But man, then they turn around and they beat some strong teams. So they're just one of those teams that has a lot of fight in them.
I will say this about BB, because you did talk just a little bit there about both Benton and BB, and BB's got probably the biggest. I would say not probably. This is the biggest week of their season because their schedule has, their schedule's mostly been a little bit backloaded, and we're going to see that this week because they've got a doubleheader against Sylvan Hills, which Sylvan Hills is still, if I'm not they've done well. They're like 11-10-3, 11-3, but they just don't have that statement win yet to me. But this week that Sylvan Hills has got a chance to do that in a doubleheader with BB, and then also BB's got a doubleheader with Benton. So huge week for the Lady Badge, especially coming off if they don't take care of their business. You could come out of this week and be on a pretty lengthy losing skid. So very crucial for this week for the Lady Badgers to have really good, because you got 4 games right there with 2 doubleheaders against 2 really good teams, including the top ranked team in 5A. You also mentioned Greenwood there. Greenwood's got Van Buren in a doubleheader. And what's really interesting about this one is Greenwood's currently on a streak. Van Buren has dropped now, albeit to some pretty tough competition in multiple different classes. Van Buren's dropped 3 consecutive after winning 4 straight. Plus, they've got Hackett this week as well. So a really big week for the Lady Pointers in particular to try to get back into maybe the upper echelon of that 5A West race. And then, as I said, Thursday, Benton and BB doubleheader. And then in a non-conference matchup, still 5A, just non-conference, Maumelle travels to Greene County Tech, and then Greene County Tech, of course, has, I think they're on a 5-game win streak right now, if I'm not mistaken. So big time matchups in 5A this week, but really the BB Badgers to me probably have the biggest.
Well, when you start talking about BB, the one thing that stands out to me about BB, they've got a very solid team. They've got good bats. They've got good defense. But they have 2 really talented arms with Lexi Delaney and Jordy Lefford. That's 2 of the better pitchers in the state of Arkansas on the same pitching staff. They give them a 1-2 punch there that is as good as any 1-2 punch anywhere in the state. And when you have solid hitting, solid defense to go with that, it gives you a chance to win a lot of games. And that's why they were undefeated for a long time this year, is they have that ability to go from one pitcher to the next. If they can split time, one can go a whole game if they need to. Sometimes one will come in. I've seen Lexi Delaney start a game and pitch 4 or 5, and then Jordy come in and close. They're different styles. Of course, Lexi's left-handed, Jordy's right-handed. They're just different, a little bit different styles, a little bit different look, and they complement each other very well. Besides being really good friends, they complement each other in the circle very well. So I've been very impressed with them and what they're doing, and I think they're going to be one of those top 3 or so teams all year long in 3A. And you have Benton has 2 deep arms, Sheridan has 2 deep arms, so there's three or four schools there that have the arms to be able to go the distance.
Yeah, and that in this class in particular, especially this conference, the Central especially, is how I know that we talked about Greenbrier. They got off to a slow start and things have. I don't want to say the wheels have fallen off necessarily because you're still. There's still the back half of the season too. We're a little over halfway through there, so you never know what could happen. But you think about the Greenbriers, Sylvan Hills again. Like I said, trying to get their first statement win, in my opinion. But when you look at a BB team that got both of their starting pitchers back. I say started because, like you said, one could start, one could relieve, and they kind of just feed off each other. That is huge, especially not only in this class, but this conference in particular, because playing those 5A doubleheaders, you got to have pitching or it's just going to be really, really tough on you. So down in Class 4A, we'll start off for the sake of going in order with Conference 1 and also finishing off with the BDI Invitational conversation. We'll start there because our top 2 teams had a great weekend. Highlighted, speaking of BB, P. Ridge's highlight of the weekend was a 1-0 victory over the BB Lady Badgers. Emory Bolin allowed just 1 hit, but she struck out 10. And then also Gentry, the number 2 team in 4A, a 2-0 shutout win over Harbor after falling to Heritage. And what was really impressive about that game, see, Jared, I think what was probably most impressive to me, was most impressive to me, was the fact that Gentry got a shutout in this one. Now, Sierra Dotts, she didn't start the game for Harbor. She came in and pitched about 3 or 4. She pitched a good bit. It was in the back half, like 3 innings or so. But to pitch a shutout against this lineup, that is extremely impressive. Callie Jordan was really good. She did work around 8 walks, but she threw a no-hitter, struck out 2. Alexis Lopez and Evie Tomlinson each notched multiple hits for the Lady Pioneers. And so 2 big-time wins right there. And that just goes to show. And I know that there's not many people have, especially that follow 4A, really said a whole lot when we still had Gentry. I think Gentry was like at 3-3, and we had him at number 2. And P. Ridge hadn't played a whole lot of games. I think through spring break they were 3-0 or 4-0, but we still had them at number 1. This is why right here. Because both of these teams with a lot of these kids on it, and I know I say all the time, in most cases, we don't base history on our rankings, but it's a little bit different when you've got kids on the team who have proven, like P. Ridge has, like Gentry has. So, and we'll talk about Bauxite here in a second, that, they took a loss to Malvern, but Bauxite, a lot of those kids have proven a lot and in the postseason. So just continuing our talk here about the BDI Invitational, P. Ridge and Gentry, I think this weekend in particular showed why both of these teams are the top teams in 4A, on top of what they've already done for the most part. I know Gentry, of course, P. Ridge is they got their first loss of the season this weekend, and Gentry had lost a couple to upper class competition as well. But I think that really both of these teams prove that they are the number 1 or the top 2 teams in Class 4A.
Well, we've talked about them all year long, and Gentry looked very good. P. Ridge looked really good and really looked like themselves again. P. Ridge, Emory Bolin missed a couple of games back around right before spring break, going into spring break with a little bit of injury, and had to be out a couple of games, and now she's back and throwing the ball well. When she's on, she's as tough as there is in the state. And so if she continues to stay healthy and keep rolling forward, she's going to be, a force just like she always has. And P. Ridge is going to be, to me, when she's healthy and rolling like she's capable of, definitely they're the top team in 4A to me, and Gentry's right there on their heels. And like you said, Gentry looked great, and Callie Jordan threw a good game, and worked around 8 walks. I'm gonna tell you, here's the deal: if she threw a no hitter with 8 walks, you know what those 8 walks were. Those were working around great hitters. That's exactly what that was. Sometimes people don't understand when you're looking at pitcher stats, and a pitcher doesn't give up a lot of hits, but they have walks. Sometimes you don't want to throw the ball in the strike zone because you know what those hitters are capable of, and you're trying to work the edges, and you miss the edges just a little bit. You end up walking somebody. All of those pitches were probably within a few inches of the strike zone, a good part of the time from a good pitcher like that. But sometimes your best bet is to work a walk around when you're facing elite hitters, is work around 1 or 2 of their best and leave them on base and go get somebody else. And so I don't ever put a lot of stock in walks when I'm looking at pitcher stats. If they're under 6 or 8 and they don't give up very many hits and they end up winning the game, I think that pitcher did a great job and did their job. So, and just a little soapbox thing for me, because I've heard
no. I'm glad. No, that's great. Because that's kind of one of the things that I thought too. Because I'm like, 8 walks, but no hitter. That's kind of like maybe just a little outside, maybe a little high on a rise. And I don't know exactly what pitches Callie usually throws, but I'm just saying, kind of just elaborate on your point. No, that's great. That's great analysis. That's why we do this. So yeah, I mean, she threw. I would say that's one of the better games, especially considering the caliber of team that it was. I mean, that's probably one of the better outings she's ever had, if we're being honest.
Yeah, and another thing that could be too is she may have been getting squeezed really tight.
I wasn't gonna say it.
I went the other way, first, but then, as a pitcher's dad, every once in a while you get squeezed really tight by an umpire.
It's fair.
My daughter has 11 walks on the entire season. 5 of them were in one game. You want me to tell you which game we got squeezed in? We won't talk about that when we played Lake Hamilton. It's one of those things. But she was really she did a great job throwing a no hitter, and she deserves the praise for that.
Yeah, no question. 2 in Class 4A are also in Class 4A as well. Something that kind of went under the radar. Clinton quietly so Morrilton's been a really hot team. Clinton kind of made a little bit of a shakeup in 4A4 by beating Morrilton 9-3. Now, it is worth noting, I'm not taking anything away from the Lady Yellow Jackets. Love Brooke Mason. She's done a great job there. But Morrilton also did play Sheridan and Greenwood, plus a conference game with Watt Robinson. So, I mean, they had a pretty full week. They had some really tough games. So that is worth noting. But also worth noting that Clinton also stays in the 4A4 race. So, or I'm sorry, that's not the 4A4 anymore. They used to be. Now it's the 4A5 North. I apologize. 4A4, that race is pretty much between Mena and Pottsville. It's kind of what it's looking like right now. So, yeah, I'm still get that mixed up because I'm so used to Morrilton being in their conference as well. Also, speaking of the 4A4, I want to talk about Abby Copine for a second. So they beat Nashville, which, Jared, Mena had never beaten Nashville before, correct? I know they've been close, or at least the 25 class has never beaten Nashville, is what I'm.
Yeah, they have not beaten Nashville, I know, in Abby Copine's career.
Yeah, at least the 25 class.
Within one run of them 3 or 4 times,
yeah.
And just couldn't quite close the deal. But, yeah, Abby Copine is throwing the ball really well this year at Mena. And there's something to be said for that. I don't know how many people in the state know, but her little brother's battling leukemia.
Yeah.
And he's doing really well, and thank God for that. And there's a lot of prayers been answered. He's doing really well, looking like he's going fully into remission, and he's still got some treatment and some things ahead of him, and that, but he has definitely got positive outlook, and a lot of prayers have been answered. But Abby spent a good part of the last year and a half being really concerned about her brother and them going back and forth to Children's Hospital and living up there, and
being airlifted a lot. I mean, he's been airlifted multiple times,
2 or 3 times, and it's been a lot for a teenage girl to go through. And she has not only excelled as a student, as an athlete, as a person. She's always been a great person, but she has stood strong and gone out there and performed and been one of the best pitchers in the state all at the same time. So I can't say enough about what a great kid she is and how she's done through all this. And the Copines are really good friends of ours, and I just love them to death and think the world of them. And we're going to continue to pray for them and continue to just be there for them in any way we can.
Yeah, and I don't think the Copines would mind me adding this because it was on Chip's Facebook. But this game was like 24 hours removed, or not even 24 hours from watching Parker. Abby saw Parker have a seizure, right there, and it's probably she's, like you said, she's seen some tough things watching her brother go through. But on top of all that. And you would imagine that, playing softball is therapeutic, for her. But what a performance to come out and do that. Let me pull up her stats. So 8 innings, gave up 1 earned run, struck out 10, also went 2 for 4 with 4 RBIs, had the walk-off hit in the 8th in extra innings. It was an extra inning game, and she had the walk-off hit. So, that's the kind of stuff that sports are about. You talked about the strikeout for cancer game that Benton and Bryant played. I mean, that's what this is all about. And, to go out and do that's just huge. I know that meant a lot to obviously Mina, just especially that 25 class, because they had been, I think it was Abby's Jaylee's age. I think it was maybe her freshman or sophomore year. You mentioned that one run. I mean, they were like right there. And I think maybe an error or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. But yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to highlight Abby because just such a great kid that's been through, more. That whole family has been through more than anybody should have to endure. But just a really great deal there to get, a win. I know that she probably really wanted to beat the Scrapperettes before she graduated. So really cool deal for that to happen. Also, another really good pitching performance that I know that was sent to me, Elena Lyle from Monticello, 5-inning perfect game with 9 strikeouts and an 11-0 win over Crosset on Thursday. Also had a double and a triple, plus Ashley Hales homered in that game. So I can't remember who sent me the stats for that, but thank you for sending that. Also, too, the Brooklyn Bearcats. We talked a lot about them this year. Jared, they were struggling there for about a 3. Now, granted, you talk about Bentonville and a really good 2A Tuckerman team. They were struggling there and then of course they lost to Westside, but just weren't able to score runs there for about a 3-game stretch, but got 2 big wins over Gosnell, both Amaya Curry, who had multiple hits, and Emery Booker, who she had multiple hits as well, and also homered, I think, in one of those games. So those 2 stepped up big for the Lady Bearcats to really get back on a streak, and especially get those 2 conference wins. It was really coming down to Westside, Gosnell, and Brooklyn. Right now I think it's probably more so of a race between Brooklyn and Jonesboro, or Westside Consolidated is what they prefer in that one. So definitely good for Brooklyn. We talked about it after the spring break tournament that Brooklyn, we felt like was going to be fine. And then they had that 6-1 loss to Westside. I still felt the same way. So I think this is probably around the time that Brooklyn will turn the corner. So now let's talk about the team of the hour for Class 4A this week, the Malvern Leopards. So, Jared, this was probably the team in Class 4A that we got the most questions about how they weren't preseason ranked. And we knew they were going to be good. We said it on the preseason show. We've said it throughout this year. But, man, I've mentioned this multiple times. When you lose a 4-year catcher, when you lose a 4-year shortstop, 3 or 4, whatever Chaz Cooper was, 3 or 4-year starter at center field, they lost a lot off this team. Now, they replaced it with some really good talent. But I mean, the other night that 15 to, because they've played a pretty decent schedule, Malvern has, but they got their first, what I would call their first statement win over Bauxite last Friday. And Kendall Noodle Watson she's been incredible this year. Again, she's batting .762 on the year. OBP's just under 800 with 11 home runs. She was 4 for 4 with 2 runs scored, 7 RBI against the Lady Miners. Also to Kayla Stewart, who's been a big-time hitter for that team for pretty much since her freshman year. She homered and was also 3 for 4. Addie White and Raina Morgan were 3 for 4. There were 17 total hits. I think 6 or 7 of the Lady Leopards had multiple hits, and there were 17 total. But, I mean, it all starts with Noodle on this team. She's just been phenomenal since she really came into varsity. We've been talking about her a lot, but this team, is certainly probably I would say they're getting hot maybe about the right time. And this win right here and Bauxite's still going to be number 3 this week. And the reason for that is they do have they have head-to-head wins over Star City and Lone Oak that we have at 4 and 5 respectively. And Malvern, of course, is going to be ranked, but I think Bauxite's overall strength of schedule kind of speaks for itself. But nonetheless, this was huge for Malvern, and you had a feeling that this was probably about the point where they would really start to turn it on. And what a performance that they had the other night. Noodle's also done a really good job in the circle as well as hitting homers to Little Rock.
Well, yeah, Kendall is you've heard me countless times sing her praises and talk about what a great hitter she is. She's a really strong pitcher too. A lot of people forget that she's as good a pitcher as she is. She throws the ball pretty hard. She's up there around 60, 61, maybe higher now. I haven't seen her lately. But she's definitely pushing that 60, 61 mark. She has a good curveball. When she's got it working, her curveball's pretty deadly. She's a quality pitcher, as good as I'd say she's probably a top 12 to 15 pitcher in the state just on her pitching ability, maybe even higher than that. And she's maybe the best hitter in the state. If she's not the best hitter, she's got to be in that argument with the top 2 to 3 hitters in the state. She's just that kid that you cannot throw the ball anywhere that she can reach it, because she may hit it over. You can put it low and away, ankle high, she can hit it over. You can throw it at her hip, she can hit it over. I mean, there's just nowhere, if she can reach it, that she can't hit it out of the park, and it's crazy. I don't know how you do that, because I've seen her hit balls that are completely out of the zone and just mash them over the fence. But you mentioned Takayla Stewart. Of course, we all say TK all day. TK played with us and traveled for a couple of years. Great kid, huge personality. Just
always smiling. I don't think I've ever seen her not smiling.
Always smiling. TK's always smiling, and if you've ever been around her, you'll hear everybody that knows her, saying that TK all day. But she's hit a lot of home runs in her career in travel, in high school, and she's really starting to bring it on right now for Malvern. She's hit several home runs in the last 4 or 5 games, and she's really finding her groove. A lot of people don't know this, but she had a pretty major back surgery last year or year before, I can't remember, and she had to have some stuff done and straightening her spine up, and had to have pretty massive back surgery. And so it took her a little while to get back to being, the TK we all knew, hitting home runs all the time. But boy, once she's really started mashing the ball. And, there's just a lot of weapons on that team. The thing you mentioned about Malvern is they had to replace a lot of talent, and they had a lot of young talent coming in. Well, it's probably taken them that long, this far up into the season to really get those reps, get that experience, and to build that chemistry between the older and younger kids. And they're just really starting to find it and click on all cylinders. You've got some great players there. Jenna Joint and Emily Mingy, TK and Kendall and Hattie Davis, Raina Morgan. Man, you start looking down that list of names, and there's just good player after good player after good player. And so I don't see how Malvern can help but be good with the talent they have. And now they're starting to find that formula of playing well together.
Yeah, and I mean, I pulled up their schedule, and they've played a good schedule. I mean, they've beaten Taylor. Look, yeah, I don't care what classification you're in. If you beat Taylor, that's a quality win in my eyes. Anytime they play, I know Nashville might not be, one of those contenders right now. Maybe they're always a contender for the 4A7. You just like that conference, you just never know. But when Malvern and Nashville meet, you just never know. That's one of those that one could be doing really well, the other couldn't. it or vice versa, but you always have to throw those records out the window. And then at the beginning of the season, played DeWitt, played Genoa Central, which Genoa Central, I know they've fallen off a little bit, beat Falk 7-0. Falk's a really good team. They also played Monticello. So they've played a really good schedule for the most part. I just think that this is probably their first statement win. But I think I'll say this, Coach Baker did a really good job of making sure that he scheduled tough, but that he wasn't crazy about it. Like, okay, I've got a bunch of freshmen. I'm not going to schedule Bentonville and I'm not going to schedule Harbor, but I'm going to schedule some tough teams. So I think that that's probably the best way to put it. But yeah, like this team a lot. And we've liked them from the beginning. I mean, we knew they were going to be Ron McNamara is their play-by-play guy, a really good friend of mine, and been talking to him kind of throughout the whole season. And, so, now he was one of the first. By the time I got the game changer update, I think Ron was the first person I got about 3 or 4 Malvern texts on Friday night. I think he was the first one to send me one. So, yeah, definitely look out for these Leopards. They're really hot right now. So, speaking of hot teams down in Class 3A, Malvern, the other M word, we were just talking about Malvern so much. Mayflower with a massive 15-8 win over Hackett on Monday to start the week. Mayflower also beat Glen Rose 17-0 on Thursday to take control of the 3A5 conference. And Jared, I actually said in the intro to the rankings last week that Mayflower and DeWitt, probably both of them have. Now, Mayflower's played the toughest conference to me in Class 3A of anybody. I mean, probably the toughest conference in all of the small classifications, 1 through 3A. I think that's very fair to say. So, they are going to have some losses on top of that. But really between them and DeWitt going into last week, I think that both of those teams had a case to be number one, and they probably still do. But we moved Mayflower up to number one after just the great performance that they had over Hackett. There were 29 total hits in this game, 18 by the Lady Eagles. Tori Barksdale and Ruby Otts went 3 for 4, and then Riley Crockett was 4 for 5 with a home run, and multiple others had at least 2 hits. So, Hackett I know is 2A, but they're the defending 3A champions. So, this is a really, really crucial win because, if Hackett was in 3A, this could have been if not a 1-2 matchup, this would have been a 1 and a 3 at very worst. So, Mayflower, look, this 25 class, it's another one that's extremely tenured, a lot of games under their belt, a lot of games won under their belt. And that was just a phenomenal performance. I know that, Hackett got theirs too, and they're going to, but to put 15 runs up on this team and notch 18 hits, you're doing something pretty dang good.
Yeah, I was very impressed with Mayflower in that game. I didn't get to watch it, but what I did, I went back and looked at the the box scores and the game changer and what I could of it, and I did see a few clips here and there of that game, but looking at the results and looking at the box scores and then talking to a handful of people who were there that watched that game, Mayflower just looked rock solid in that game. They hit the ball extremely well, and that's saying something. Mackenzie Freeman's a really good pitcher, one of the top pitchers in the state, and Mayflower, man, they found their bats and they knocked it all over the field for that game. And that's pretty rare to do against her, for a team to hit her as well as they hit her. And I don't know if it was an off game for her, if Mayflower's hitting that well, but whatever it was, they found the formula and they made it work. And then Ruby Otts is just, you've heard me sing her praises multiple times before. She's just an incredible athlete, whether it's pitching, whether it's hitting. The kid is just tough. And, she's just another one of those Thunder 07 kids. As much as it pains me to give them as much praise as I do sometimes, because we play them all the time and they're kind of like a rival to us in travel ball. There's a lot of really great players on that Thunder 07 team, and you start talking about Kendall Watson and Ruby Otts and Kristen Holt. The list just goes on and on. And Kayla Myers.
Yeah, Kayla Myers was the next one. Yeah.
There's 8, 9, 10, great players. And then you got Haggins. I don't know which way you should say it, but Alyssa Haggins, that's on that team. Just everywhere you look, they got great players. And so a lot of talent in that Mayflower group. There's a lot of talk early that Hackett was not only a top team in Arkansas, but possibly a top 25 team in the country. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, if they're truly a top 25 team in the country, or, that might have been a little bit oversold, but they're a really, really good team. Hackett is an amazing team. Definitely one of the top 7 or 8 teams in the state of Arkansas. And you can't say enough about all the talent they have, but for Mayflower to come in and just handle their business and put a very solid win up on Hackett, I can't say anything but good things about Mayflower and what they've done. And like you said, it's a very tenured 25 class in that Mayflower group. There's 5 or 6 seniors there that are all just really talented young ladies.
Yeah, no doubt. And speaking of the Thunder, I got to give a shout out to Scott Knight too, with how good of a job he does. I mean, I would say I'll give Prime does a really good job of promoting their kids. Thunder, and look, I know that this might ruffle feathers that I'm giving shout outs, but I'm going off of what I see. I would say Thunder and Prime probably do the best at, like, as far as like giving full on stats with the season stats and everything, which helps us a lot. So we really appreciate that. But there's a lot of Thunder kids that we see highlighted quite a bit on a weekly basis. But I will say this: 3A7 is the conference that I just don't know right now. Genoa Central, pound for pound, probably I would say has the best. Then they played more games than I think either Falk or Smackover. Pound for pound probably has the best schedule overall, but like at least pre-spring break. But then Falk rips a new one to Genoa. Then Smackover, who's been having a really good season, but we really just didn't like their schedule. We didn't really know how good they were. I mean, they're pounding people, but then they shut out Falk, and we're like, okay, I think this Smackover team actually is pretty good. And we felt like that they were a decent team, just didn't know how good. But a shout out over Falk, I mean, that's pretty impressive. So 3A is that, and I will say this too. 3A is a class that every single week we start off with. I had to make the joke of catching our breath. It's still a very good class. I don't know that it's quite as deep as it has been in most recent years. And what I mean by that is you could pretty much go through our Super 7 and you could say, okay, all these teams legitimately could make a deep run and possibly win a state championship, even in the outside looking in. I don't know that I can say that with confidence right now. Maybe like 3 or 4 of the teams. I don't know that I could say that with the full slate. But the 3A7, and I say all that to say that kind of like how 3A as a classification normally is overall, that conference is probably by far, to me right now, the most unpredictable.
I agree with you. I told you early that Falk was going to be really dangerous whenever they got their basketball girls back. And within a few games after they got them back, they looked really strong. Looked like the team that I thought they were going to be. Got that win over Genoa, a big win over Genoa. And then they turned around and Smackover got that win over them. And it makes me wonder if Falk was a little off or if Smackover is that strong. And it's going to make me have to look at Smackover a little bit harder. I was a little bit light on Smackover because of their strength of schedule. I didn't think they played a really strong schedule leading up to that win over Falk. I knew they had won a lot of games, and beat some people really solid, but I didn't see a lot of quality opponents on that schedule. So, me and you both talk a lot about strength of schedule and that stuff. And so I'll say this: I got to give Smackover props. They had a solid win there over Falk. They look really good. We just have to look and see what they do going forward, but they definitely earned a lot of respect in my book. Falk, I think, needs to continue to do the things that they look like they were doing when they beat Genoa very solid. Like I said, I don't know if it's an off game or if Smackover is really, really good, and we haven't figured it out yet, but we're going to see over the next 2 to 3 weeks coming up. We'll definitely find out because they're going to be playing quality teams down the stretch.
Looking at the conference standings right now, I mean, you expect it to be Center Point is 9-5, 2-2 in conference, so they're them and Harmony Grove OC are both 2 games behind first place, and they're tied for the center point. It looks like I think they have played, but either way, in those 4 or 5 spots, so fighting it out for that 4th spot there. But Genoa Central and Falk are tied. I guess Falcon's the head-to-head over Genoa, but they both sit a game behind Smackover in the conference race. So the Lady Bucks right now do lead the race, but that's going to be one that I'm watching really close to see exactly how everything turns out for the postseason, which, gosh, by the way, I guess this is one of those conferences that has a district tournament, and we're like 2 weeks away from that. It's crazy to think about that. But on down to Class 2A now, if I can pull my notes back up. Here we go. So just a couple of notes that I had kind of taken from last week. Riverside got those. So that was one of the anticipated matchups that we had in Conference 3. Riverside gets a 9-5 victory over EPC to take the lead in their conference. Tuckerman with a big 9-0 win over Izard County. Izard County is a team that we've kind of been talking about that could make some noise, and they very well still could. But Tuckerman beat them, I think, by a run or two a couple of weeks ago, and then just took it to the Lady Cougars with a 9-0 victory on Tuesday. The Woodlawn Lady Bears, they just continue to roll 2-1 over DeWitt on Thursday, a big win over a top 3A team. Lily Faye McWhorter struck out 12 while allowing only 4 hits in that one. She also struck out all 9 batters that she faced, making quick work of Fordyce on Tuesday. The Lady Bears are actually the first team in the state, regardless of classification, to reach 20 wins on the season. So they are really rolling this year. Also, too, another big pitching performance that we had. I got some stats on this. So Kaylee McDonald, who was our week 2 player of the week, I believe, team funded player of the week. She went 3-0, struck out 52 in 21 innings pitched, and then allowed just 4 hits, 2 runs, had a 0 ERA, and then walked 5. And then also, Jared, we're going to talk about but we're going to discuss the 2A7 conference, but also mention Bigelow, who we've talked about is a little bit Jekyll and Hyde this year. I mean, their record shows it, 10-9. They played a pretty tough schedule for the most part. Actually, have played a tough schedule. I'll give them that. But they really picked up a big win over Quitman in extra innings, 3-2 on Friday. The Lady Panthers scored 2 runs in the 8th to end up winning it. Now, the 2A5 is one of those interesting conferences because CAC actually leads it right now. They still have to play the top half, like the Bigelows, the Quitmans, the Mount Vernon Enolas, but CAC, that hasn't had that great of a year, leads that conference, which makes it just kind of interesting at the moment. But Bigelow, they've got wins. The biggest one that they have, I know they beat Boonville. Of course, they did beat Woodlawn as well. They didn't I think they faced Woodlawn's number 3 in that one, so not taking anything away from them, but that definitely is worth noting there. But I did mention a couple of weeks ago, I think it was maybe 2 shows ago, that this, I think it was maybe before or after spring break, that 2A5 conference race is going to be interesting. Quitman is certainly the favorite, but yeah, I mean, because Quitman has proved that. But when you think about just some of the battles that they have had over the years, really not just Quitman and Bigelow, but also you throw Mount Vernon and Enola in that mix, going to make it an interesting 3-headed race, I think, there at the top. But I'll get your take on the 2A5 so far, just because I know that, if I'm not mistaken, that's the conference that you guys at Cutter were previously in, and then we'll get into the 2A7.
We were in that conference for the last 2 years. Of course, at the time we were there, Quitman was not in it, and Mount Vernon Enola was not in it. But Bigelow is a very solid team, and on the preview show, you heard me mention that I expected them to be a really good team and much improved. And a lot of those young players that have been good for the last couple of years are becoming juniors and seniors now. They are definitely up and down this year. They played a really strong schedule and lost to some tough teams, and then they've lost a couple games that I'm like, how did they lose those games? Like, that's not the Bigelow I expect, And I've noticed it's been weird. Like, there's been a few games that they've given up a lot of hits. There's been a few games that they've had a lot of errors, and then there's been other games against really good teams that they pitched really well. They played great defense. They hit the ball. So they are definitely just that team that I can't really get a handle on right now. Quitman's a really solid team. In my opinion, Quitman's the best team in that conference. But on any given day, anybody in that conference can find a way to get a win. And we saw that, Bigelow got that win over Quitman. That's a really big win for them. Mount Vernon and Ola, I haven't got to see enough out of them this year. They look solid. They've lost a couple games I didn't think they should, and then won a couple I didn't think they should. So I kind of feel like they're right there in that same boat with Bigelow, that, they could be really good one day and not so great the next. I think there's a lot of youth there. They lost a lot, losing Allie Mendoza and Jenna Job, and I think they lost Ashley Sprague. And I'm trying to think. I feel like there's another one that I should know in that group. There was 4 or 5 in that group that were really good ball players, but they lost a lot, and so that's somewhat of a rebuilding year. But they put up some good wins this year already too, and played a decent schedule. So my pick is still Quitman overall there, but it's not a closed door case either. There's still a lot of room to go, and a lot of their conference has not played each other yet. They're one of those conferences that they don't play a lot of their conference till the last few weeks, right before district tournament. CAC, of course, Kayla Myers is an amazing athlete, great hitter, all that stuff. But overall, CAC has not looked really great this year. And they lost a little bit. They lost some talent, and they had a couple kids move out. But there's still some good ball players there, and they may be starting to find it a little bit. If they can get a couple of wins going down the stretch here, they can put themselves right back in that conversation.
Speaking of some interesting cases in certain conferences, I'll pick your brain on the 2A7 right now, since you see the most of this conference of any. And you guys at Cutter had a great week. Won 3 games. Jaylee had an incredible week, and that 2-1 win over Horatio was really big for the conference standings. Jaylee finished 3-0, struck out 33 in 15 innings. Of course, I'm going off, Coach Pogue sent me these. 4 hits, one walk, 0 earned runs, and then had a .072 batting average against. Then also at the plate, hit .571, 667 OBP, 4 RBI, and a home run. So I don't know what you or Dara cooked her for breakfast this week, but yeah, she had a big one. But I know y'all got another one, really big one against Foreman this week, which basically, I know that y'all both have some games prior to that you got to handle business in, but the end of the week, that could be for first place in the conference.
Yeah, we definitely, we got to go take care of business tomorrow. Cutter Morningstar goes to Murfreesboro tomorrow. Out on the road at Murfreesboro, that's going to be a tough game. Murfreesboro has not had their best season, but they are playing better. I've noticed the last 2 to 3 games they're playing a lot better. It's going to be a tough deal to go down there and go play against Murfreesboro, because they're always tough at home. We need to get that win really badly to continue to hold on to first place in our conference. And then Friday night, we have a very big game with Foreman, and a matchup of 2 really good pitchers. Mallory Abercrombie from Foreman is an exceptional pitcher. I think she's well over 500 strikeouts in her career. She throws the ball really hard. I don't know exactly where she is, but she's well up into the 60s. She has a lot of gas, so we definitely are going to have our hands full with that one. But if we can find a way to get that one, if we can find a way to get a win tomorrow at Murfreesboro, and we can find a way to get a win at Foreman Friday, or Foreman comes to us Friday, that's going to be, for all the marbles right there, a chance to lock up first place in our conference. I can't say enough good things about Horatio. After seeing them, I thought they were probably the best team in our conference all the way up until this point, and I still think they're the most complete team in our conference as far as hitting, defense. I was really unsure about their pitching, but I'm gonna tell you, the Williamson girl that pitched for them against us Wednesday was lights out. She threw a great ball. She held us to 3 hits. It was a battle down to the very last out. They had the tying run on second base when we got a pop up for the last out. Jaylee was throwing amazing, but they gave us everything we wanted, and it was one of the most intense high school games that I've seen in a long time. It was just that, every time the ball was hit, people were holding their breath kind of deal to see if it was going to fall or if it was going to work. And I'll say they put the ball on the ground several times and made us play defense, especially late in the game. And our kids came up big with some big defensive plays. I can't say enough about our catcher that made several good plays, and she threw out a runner at second that might have been the difference in us being able to win that game. They had a really quick runner on first, and they thought they had a steal locked up, and she just hosed her out at second. She was expecting it, and she was ready for it, and she threw a missile down there. So Kaylin Baum did a great job on that. Looking further down our conference, Derrick's and Spring Hill are still solid teams down there, so they're going to be competing for that, those third, fourth place spots in our conference.
Yeah, Coach Pogue also sent me. Yeah, talking about Baum. She hit just under 600 on the way of pulling up these this text he sent me. So just hit under 600 with a 1.600 OPS. And I'm trying. I need glasses, I swear. And then 5 hits, 5 RBI, and was 5 for 8 at the plate. And then Haley Campbell hit 590 with a 1.485 OPS, 3 doubles, 4 RBI, and 7 runs scored. So, yeah, big week for the Lady Eagles, and could have another big week this week if, especially, obviously, you take care of business before the Foreman game, but big opportunity this week. It's crazy I just can't believe that we're talking about like getting to the end of conference races. It's still got a couple more weeks left, but it just all goes by so fast. But last but not least, I don't have much in 1A, Jared. I do get to give a shout out to our girl, Ayla Buford. She notched her from Taylor, of course, notched her 500th strikeout while allowing no hits or walks against Hermitage on Friday. I know technically it was a perfect game, won't count in the record books. And I say quotes. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Ayla. I'm just saying per the AAA, it won't count because it has to be 5 innings. But still, another solid performance. It's like, what more else is there to say about this kid? She's done everything in the book. She's won a 3-time state tournament. Well, she's a 3-time state champion, but a 3-time state tournament MVP. I'll say, Jared, we don't pick fate. We root for everybody, but I'm truly going to miss this kid because I mean, she is probably the most decorated, one of the more decorated athletes that I've ever covered. When you talk about just all that she's won individually, won as a team, I don't know really what else there is to say about her, but I'm really excited to watching her pitch at SAU, but as a Taylor Tiger for at least a couple more months.
I love Ayla to death. Of course, she plays on our travel team, and she's just a great kid, just as high a character kid as there is out there. She loves everybody. She's a great teammate. It'd be different if she was really crazy talented and she was just, a bad teammate or, had a bad attitude. But she has a great attitude. She's always smiling. She's always picking up her teammates. She's always the first one to lead the cheers. If she's not the one out there, she's cheering up her teammates. Just a great kid, great family, great people. Her little sister Adley is playing up there with them now. She's a freshman on the team. And from everything I'm seeing, Adley's playing really well, and
she's a stud. Yeah, she's a great athlete.
She's a really good basketball player, and looking like she's going to be a really good softball player too. But like I said, they're great people, and she's a great kid. And in 1A, I think we're kind of right there in that same spot that we talked about. Taylor, Scranton, Westside, and maybe Concord. Bradley's still kind of in that conversation. They're playing pretty solid ball. Boy, it's going to be tough for anyone else to give those 3 or 4, a lot of run for their money for when we start talking about getting to state and winning a state championship. And you mentioned the perfect game, and that's one thing I want to bring up. I think that gets lost in the shuffle a lot of times. We have pitchers that throw perfect games. And because it's not 5 innings, so it's not going to make the AAA record books. A lot of those perfect games don't even get brought up or mentioned. I don't care if it's 3 innings, 4 innings, 5 innings, or 7 innings. A perfect game is a perfect game to me. And Ayla, I know, threw 1. Jaylee's thrown 2 in the last 2 weeks. They were 3-inning perfect games. I tell you, somebody that I know threw a perfect game that we haven't brought up is Brinkley Morton, threw a 5-inning perfect game that will make the record books. And I'm leaving somebody out. I know there was at least 2 other perfect games. You mentioned Elena Lyle, but there's at least one more.
Lily Fay struck out all 9 batters faced on Monday against Fordyce.
There's one more, and I'm going brain dead now.
I know Mackenzie Freeman she struck out like 14 of 15 batters against Hector. I think that was a 3 or 4 inning. That's pretty impressive. 14 of 15 batters. That's
that is. So. That's a great game. There's one other. There was one other 5-inning perfect game this week, and I remember reading about it, and now I'm drawing a blank on who it was. So whoever you were, whoever I'm not mentioning, I'm sorry I forgot the name, but I was trying to give you a shout out. So I just, and I meant to write down and make notes on the perfect games, but we usually try to mention those every couple of shows and get them in, and we kind of fell off a little bit on that. So we definitely had some good ones over the last week or two.
Yeah, Mackenzie definitely was because it was 15 outs, so that was a 5. Yeah, I can't do math, so that was a 5-inning game. So she struck out. She retired all of the batters she faced. She struck out 14 of them, is what I was getting at. So I can't do math. That was a 5-inning game. So, but yeah, no, that's a great point, Jared. I think, and look at. We have we just, and especially like with what I do, and what Jared does with softball, we do have to go by with what the AAA, the record books say and all that stuff. But that is a great point. I mean, just because it might not count. And again, I use the quotes not as disrespect. I'm just saying that because by the governing body stance, it doesn't count. That's not taking anything away. I mean, that should definitely be celebrated regardless of who it's against. That's still, big for those kids and big for those teams. And it's still a win. That's the biggest thing. It's obviously big for the kid individually, but you also notch a win for your team. So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. Before we wrap up here, one more quick shout out to our sponsors, Athletic Field Service of Arkansas. Jeremy Rice and his crew have you covered, whether it be lip removal, edging, laser removal, anything on a natural surface. They have you covered. 501-416-1218. Again, that's 501-416-1218. As for Jeremy Rice, Boom Boom Floor Shine, covering the South Arkansas region. Whether you need some TLC for your VCT or just basic maintenance on your VCT, give Boom Boom Floor Shine a call, 870-833-0521. And then also head over to Chinook Seedery for all you seed lovers. D1 baseball, USA baseball, and D1 softball all prefer Chinook Seedery, so you should too. They've got 8 different flavors for your liking. Type in referral code NSS Media for 10% off of your order. Well, other than that, yeah, Jared, I know y'all got some big stuff at Cutter this week. I am actually, I'm not going to hit any games in state this week because I'm going to try to be a dad as much as I can since I'm going to be in Texas for 3 days. But you got a big one this weekend, guys. If you didn't catch our 6A talk, Bentonville, after they play Rogers and Springdale Harbor this week, they're going to go play top-ranked, nationally consensus #1 Melissa. So looking really forward to that. I actually had a chance to watch Little Rock Parkview and Melissa play in football last fall, and I'm not taking. Coach Early set this up. I just gave him the idea, but I'm down there and I'm like, okay, this is the 5A Division II champions of Texas, and finished nationally, I think, top 5, and I figured they'd be preseason. This was back in August that I'm walking through the facilities here, and I'm like, we need a team to play these girls. I mean, we need somebody to do it. And I could think of probably about 2 teams that might be capable of doing that. No disrespect. We're just being realistic here. And, of course, Bentonville was one of those. And so I told Coach Early about it. He said it, and, he got it. He made it happen. So we're really looking forward to that. We will have coverage of that entire game. We'll have a pregame story as well as postgame coverage as well. We'll talk about some of the sponsors that are making that trip happen. But other than that, Jared, let's wrap this baby up. If you got anything else to say, the floor is yours.
I just I'm looking forward to a big week with our group and a big week for several other of these conference races, and I'm going to be paying attention to about 5 or 6 of these races that we talked about, watching the Game Changer and trying to watch as much film as I can. definitely a big week statewide when you start looking at a lot of the conference races. Really going to start deciphering those top 2 to 3 spots in almost every conference. So it's been an exciting week of softball.
Be sure, as I said at the top of the show, if you haven't already, be sure and subscribe on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you're alerted anytime we release an episode. Also, Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, I think Stitcher as well, if Stitcher's even still a thing. That was one of the ones when I first began podcasting in 2018. So not sure if they're still around, but nonetheless, wherever you listen on the audio platforms as well, we are there. So that'll be it for this week's episode. We also got baseball coming this week, but assuming that nobody goes out of power or any other emergencies happen, we will have the show out on Monday for the remainder of the season. Also, send in your candidates for the team-funded player of the week. We still got that going on through the regular season, so make sure and send those in. Other than that, for Jared Hawthorn and the rest of us here, my name's Kyle Sutherland. We will catch you next week.